Welcome, everybody. This is a special webinar that we get to only do once in a while as we bring in a new member of our HCMA Recognized Center of Excellence team. And today we are absolutely thrilled to have with us Dr. Melissa Burroughs from Wellstar. And you can see that lovely HCMA logo right on top of Wellstar's logo here, and contact information on how to get in touch with Dr. Burroughs. So we'll bring that back up later for those of you who'll watch it later. But let's introduce our good friend and new colleague in the HCM space for the past, about 2 years. We've been working together behind the scenes. Dr. Melissa Burroughs, welcome to the HCMA's social media thread and your coming out party.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you. So could you tell our listening audience a little bit about who you are and how you landed in cardiology? And then we'll dig in a little deeper from that point.
I'm a non-invasive cardiologist in the Atlanta area. I grew up in Atlanta and I always wanted to be a cardiologist. In fact, the cardiologist that I shadowed when I was 14 years old was my colleague at Wellstar up until this year when she retired. So we actually had a chance to end her career with us working together as colleagues. I was fortunate that my father was in healthcare and so knew a lot of physicians and was able to connect me with a woman cardiologist who really took me under her wing. And from there, when I went to medical school at Harvard, I had another wonderful woman cardiologist take me under her wing, Dr. Michelle Albert, who's a former president of the American Heart Association. At the time, she was junior faculty at the Brigham. And so it was a very natural path for me. I started off in research, started off as faculty at the University of California, San Francisco, doing research in global health and environmental health. I did work in Peru, Brazil, and then it moved into mostly clinical practice in 2018, relocated to the Atlanta area in 2021. And so there I had the opportunity to really take the helm of our cardiomyopathy program, both for HCM and for amyloid. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years, is really just focusing on cardiomyopathies. I still have a robust general cardiology practice, do inpatient, outpatient, but this is my joy.
You found your passion. What is it about those thick hearts that intrigues you so, doctor?
I like complex problem solving. I mean, that's what got me into cardiology. That's what I've always loved about the field. While we have robust science and robust algorithms, you still have to figure it out. You know, it's not always obvious. And so some of my favorite moments are when me and my colleagues in heart failure are kind of going through these challenging diagnoses, and we think one thing and then we know we get additional tests and now we have to do a biopsy. And so I just love that it always keeps you on your toes. You're always having to second guess the diagnosis. You can never be overconfident because sometimes things which you initially thought will be wrong. I also like the fact that it affected a wide range of ages. So I have young patients and older patients, and I like that. I also like the fact that it combines genetics with environmental exposures, which has always been an interest of mine. I graduated from high school in 2000. At that point, the Human Genome Project was the thing. Fast forward 25 years later, you know, how much we can leverage the science of genetics to diagnose, treat, and sometimes even customize treatment plans for certain patients for certain cardiomyopathies. And so it's just amazing how far we've come. But then it's not everything, you know, just because you have the genes doesn't mean that your phenotype is going to predictably be the same. So just doing that, and also working with families, talking about complex science to families. So it just combines all the things that I enjoy. So it's been good.
I was fascinated when I got to meet you and learn about your practice, that you see things a bit like I do, that these thick hearts aren't always this or that. Sometimes they're a little of both. And that goes into our new tagline of HCMA, a home for the big-hearted. And whether you're HCM or amyloid, a lot of our programs kind of cross over. But then there's the other unlikelies, the Fabry's, the Danin's, the Rasopathies. There are these other reasons why your heart is thick. And when you work with one of our centers, and especially yours, we want to know why. Why thick? Why is this heart thick? And from there, what can we do to improve its function? And I love that part of your program. So let's talk a little bit about your team that you've built. Tell me what's going on there?
We have a robust team. We have a very strong advanced heart failure program, so our HCMA program is nestled in that program. My co-lead is Latif Bikic, who is trained in advanced heart failure. So he and I talk almost on a weekly basis, just like him on Wednesday, and we'll review cases, send photos, and just have an amazing collaboration from a heart failure perspective. But we have a wider team as well. We have surgeons who are top notch with a lot of experience with complex cases. Dr. Rich Young, who does all of our HCM cases. We have electrophysiology. Dr. Narendra Kanaroo, who is the chief of EP for our group. We have a team of geneticists. We have psychologists that are specific to our cardiovascular program. We have APPs. We have nurse navigators, nurse managers. We have a whole host of healthcare professionals that really have an interest in helping HCM patients. In fact, the excitement that comes from our team members when we start talking about this program and the goal is quite remarkable.
Let's talk about your catchment area. For those who may not be familiar with Wellstar, can you tell me where your main campus is and where you have satellite locations?
Yes. So our main campus, so there are 9 hospitals with Wellstar, so we have a wide catchment area. Main hospitals in Marietta, Georgia, just outside Atlanta, northwest of Atlanta. That's where Keystone Hospital is, where our advanced heart failure clinic is. But then we also have, right now I'm sitting in Hiram, Georgia, which is about 20-30 minutes from Marietta in Paulding County. So we have a very growing practice here, very large catchment area in Paulding County, extending all the way to the Alabama border and up to Rome, Georgia. We also have hospitals in LaGrange, so I see patients from LaGrange, hospitals in North Fulton, so like in the Alpharetta area, Douglas County, Douglas Hospital, Cobb County, the Cobb Hospital, and then maybe some, and then also Augusta. So we have a collaboration with Augusta University as well. So Wellstar has a huge footprint in the state of Georgia, and it's still growing.
So I think one of the amazing things that's happening in HCM is care models are growing, and there are different reasons why we need to make sure that there are multiple programs in a state. We've worked for many years with the people over at Emory, and they do a great job, but there's just too many patients. So we will be expanding Georgia, not by 1 program, but by 2 over the next couple of months. And that gives us a real opportunity to really make sure that the entire ecosystem of healthcare providers knows where they can refer their patients for expert care, no matter what system that patient happens to be in. Because we know that these different healthcare systems are aligned with different healthcare payer systems. So who can get where? We're going to have Georgia pretty well covered that no matter your insurance access point, you should find expert care within states. So I'm really excited about that because not many states can offer that. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Georgia will really start to shine in terms of meeting guideline-directed therapy every step of the way, no matter where you're going to get your care. So bravo to that. You and I have both spoken a lot about the issues related to health equity in HCM and the need to ensure that all patients get access to care regardless of what their ethnic differences are, that whether they're in an urban or a rural environment. Can we talk a little bit about what your feelings are on health equity in HCM?
Yeah, I think that's a really important topic. You know, where we sit in the Atlanta area, in Marietta, but also the outlying counties, it's very diverse. This is an area that's drawing people not only from all over the country, but from all over the world. So I've got HCM patients from every place you can imagine, from many different continents. And I think that's important that not only are we welcoming and making sure that we have an environment that accommodates different languages and can take care of diverse patients, but that also we are looking for HCM in every place that it might be. It's a diagnosis that particularly in African Americans sometimes can be ignored because of the high prevalence of hypertension. But I would argue that in the state of Georgia, I mean, hypertension is highly prevalent in almost everybody who is from this state. but particularly African Americans. And so it's often that, we kind of have to set the tone that just because someone has a thick heart and has high blood pressure doesn't mean that we should stop looking. And that's where having a center of excellence is so important, because it basically, the night is to raise quality throughout the entire service line. So it's not just the patients that I interface with, but my colleagues now have a higher sensitivity, a higher awareness that they should be looking for HCM. In addition to making the diagnosis, is also, to your point, making sure that everyone understands that the guidelines evolve. And you don't want patients to be treated with the standard of care from the year 2005. We want to make sure that all the treatments that are necessary are available, and that we're doing all the appropriate testing and family screening. So that's one thing that we also see, that sometimes the diagnosis was made, but maybe they haven't had genetic testing. Maybe they haven't been periodically reassessed for their risk of sudden death. Or maybe they're symptomatic, but we haven't done enough provocative maneuvers to really get the gradient so that we can zero in on the appropriate treatment. So that's where I think the HCMA has been so helpful in going through this process, and the network that we've been able to form with both in our region, but also nationally, helps to raise the standard throughout the whole health system.
I think that's awesome. I think it's one of the projects that we're working on elsewhere right now, but we hope to bring to Georgia, is the All Hearts Collaborative, which is looking specifically within the faith community to look for their constituents who may have undiagnosed family heart health histories that are important to be acted upon. And again, we're looking for HCM, amyloidosis, and uncontrolled hypertension, because there's so much opportunity to just identify those individuals and get their care optimized. We can change lives, we can improve lives, we can extend lives. And that's really what this is all about. Why do we do all this stuff, right? Why are we doing all these tests? Why do we want to find all these people? Because we want people to feel better, faster, and we want to use healthcare efficiently. And when we work in a network, that's what can happen. So we are super excited to have you join our network of workaholics who like to solve puzzles, or hocomologists as we call them. So I got to go back and make my hocomologist desk plates again. I used to give those out to all the new centers, and I don't know where I lost that, but I think I got to bring it back. I'll send you a hocomologist desk plate. What else can you tell us that's unique about Wellstar that people may not know?
I think we're a large group of cardiologists. There's almost just under 100 cardiologists. I think one thing that we talked about, diversity and health equity, we actually have a very diverse cardiology group in terms of the cardiologists themselves. A fair amount of women, and people from diverse ethnic backgrounds, geographic backgrounds. And it helps, because I think it sets the tone when we talk about patients and we're together, that we all come from different perspectives. We've got people who are from Georgia, people from, other parts of the country, other parts of the South, Midwest, Northeast. And so it helps us to kind of provide the care that's necessary for a diverse population. What else about? One thing I also want to mention about Wellstar, while we're mostly clinical, we do actually have the capacity and have had a track record of doing research. And so we are in the process of building that. Several of us are actively engaged in research for many aspects of cardiology. We actually have a training program. So we're training residents at multiple campuses, both at Kennestone, Cobb Hospital, and soon at Paulding Hospital. And so that's a huge step, because as you're aware, while Georgia is growing economically, booming economically, as there's just not enough healthcare providers to meet the need of our population. This is a state where people have been coming and growing and expanding, and there's not enough doctors. So Wellstar, as mostly a clinical enterprise, has taken on the role of training physicians, which I think is outstanding. And our collaboration with Augusta University, which is Medical College of Georgia, is also a testament to that commitment. So Needless to say, we're not academic per se, but we take on a lot of academic roles.
I think that's been happening more and more with the large the community hospital systems, that they grow into what they're capable of. And that teaching and that element of research, whether it's deep dive, a clinical trial, or community-based public health research, I think the role is growing for all these different access points, and I think it's fascinating. Obviously, we have a lot to evolve into in our country as our healthcare system changes, and I've been pretty concerned about the fact that we are a growing population and our healthcare resources seem to be quite taxed. We lost a lot of steam during COVID. A lot of people got burned out and left. And we need to build up that next generation of clinical expertise. And we need to train the next generation of physicians and healthcare providers, no matter what level they come in at, to know the latest and greatest on diseases, and they can't be 20 years off on their understanding, because we're moving pretty quick in HCM and amyloid and what's happening there in our treatment options. We're now talking about, real specific therapies like myosin inhibitors. We're talking about disease-altering therapies like genetic therapy. Mm-hmm. Did not see that one coming in my lifetime 20 years ago, but here we are. That's amazing and fascinating. Scary. We do have a question from our audience, and you never know who's going to ask what kind of a question. So we're going to go into not Center of Excellence question, but just a basic HCM question. Mm-hmm. Is HCM considered heart failure?
So that's a good question. Well, now, there are some patients with HCM who have heart failure, but not all of them do. Heart failure is actually a clinical syndrome. So it's based off signs and symptoms consistent with the heart's inability to accommodate the demands of the body. So that tends to look like symptoms as shortness of breath, sometimes fatigue, signs such as swelling at times. But not everyone with HCM has that clinical syndrome. So you're right, there is some overlap, but it's not. They're not the same.
It's a challenging question, and I'll take a moment to dive into the rabbit hole that is, are we heart failure or not, because it comes up a lot. Mm-hmm. We're working with a gentleman by the name of John Spurtis, who's created a thing called the KCCQ, and that's the Kansas City Living with Heart Failure questionnaire that many of you have taken either during a clinical appointment or as part of a clinical trial. And its name is a heart failure survey, and people with HCM look at it and go, I have HCM, I don't have heart failure. But the questions are very similar. How we evaluate your HCM status mm-hmm. is based on your symptoms, which, oh, by the way, are the same symptoms of other forms of heart failure. So we kind of cross over. So good news is we're trying to create our own tool for HCM. So we're working on that right now. And finally, after a really long time, we got some contracts signed this week. So I'm super happy about that. But technically, by Latin derivatives of meanings of words, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy does mean it's a thick heart failure, but we're not all in heart failure. So it gets a little confusing, and I try to tell people, don't worry about the words, worry about how you feel. If you are getting progressive in your symptoms, talk to your doctor about the symptoms that you're feeling. And especially for those of you who are entering that advanced heart failure stage and things are moving on, we have a really bad habit. Melissa, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I think you are. Because a lot of people with HCM are middle-aged or young adults, and we want to be fine and we want to be normal when we're asked, how you doing? We just instinctively say, we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. We've discounted our own symptoms a lot of times. We've become used to being short of breath, walking upstairs or hiking or going up an incline or after a meal, or we're just a little extra tired because, well, we're just tired. These are symptoms you want to report to your doctor. Even if they're normal to you, talk about them, because they could be signs that your heart is having a hard time keeping up with you. And we may want to offer you different therapies and services. So It's a good question, Cindy. I thank you for asking it. It sounds like a simple question, but it's complicated. Would you not agree, Dr. Burroughs?
Yes, it's very complicated. But to your point, I mean, I have HCM patients I saw today who could outrun me. So not everyone is limited, but some people normalize their limitations and you have to kind of get it out of them. And, that's a little controversial. I don't know if you remember, sometimes when we were at the HCM summit, like how hard should you really try to prove to someone that they're limited? I try to keep a patient-centered approach. I don't want to make your benchmark my physical ability or the next patient's physical ability. I just want to make sure that you're able to keep up with the activities that you want to do and that your peers, people around you are doing. So I focus on that and say, well, what about going to a store? What about going on vacation? What about going on a walk? I'm not going to push you to the limit on a treadmill just to prove that you're limited in my mind.
I think that is excellent. One of the things we offer our clients and our patients is journal to document what you're feeling, when you're feeling, because you'll have periods where you feel not so great, and then other periods where like, I'm fine. And we want you to be very clear in your communication that I have a lot of really good days, but when I'm having a bad day, these are the things that I'm noticing. These are the things that I think might have led to my bad day. What do you think, doc? And have that conversation. Some lifestyle modifications, watching what you're eating, maybe not imbibing with so much alcohol, maybe you need a little extra rest. All of these little things, a small change can make a big difference. Good sleep hygiene, getting good sleep can change so much. Oh my goodness, I went on a mission for better sleep after my transplant, and it's been really important to me. All right, I might be a little obsessed by my sleep meter, and I watch it all the time. And I know when I'm going to have a bad day because I didn't sleep well the night before, but I know how to get it back by getting another good night of sleep. So highly encourage good sleep. What else should we let people with HCM know? This, you're launching in Heart Month, so we got to have some good Heart Month messages, and it's also Black History Month. So what do we want to say about these two items on this important day of your official launch to our network?
Well, I think, you raised a good point on during Heart Month. I do like to talk about wellness and wellness behaviors. Whether you have a diagnosis of heart disease or not, we should focus on wellness and feeling our best and doing our best as it relates to heart disease. Sleep is very important. I appreciate your diligence in having good sleep. I'm similar. And we know that poor sleep is linked to, worse outcomes for coronary disease and stroke. And I think diet is also important, and physical activity. One of the things that we discussed at a recent panel is physical activity in HCM patients. I've come across patients who were restricted severely to their detriment, both their mental and physical health. I mean, I'm almost brought to tears thinking about some of these patients. I mean, how much it just ruined their lives. And so we're trying to get the message out to people that we don't, the way I put it is this: I don't want to ruin your entire body for the sake of your heart, because the data don't show that that's the right thing to do. Obviously, we're vigilant, we're monitoring for arrhythmias, we're monitoring for things that, put a person at high risk. But we want our patients to be healthy and for their bodies to be fit. In addition to that, stress management is important. And managing not only stress, psychosocial stress, but also anxiety as well. Anxiety related to regular life, relationships, jobs, housing, but also anxiety related to disease. And so that's something that I'm really proud of that we do at Wellstar. I have not seen in any other health system I've worked in, academic or non-academic, is that we have a dedicated team for psychology for heart disease. Because we know that a psychologist who understands heart disease is going to be different than one who doesn't, and understand that what it means to a person when they're told that they might have a diagnosis that could, affect their future. And so I think that's really important as well, not only for your mental health, but also for your physical health. We know that chronic stress changes your physiology, raises cortisol, changes endothelial function. So for your physical health as well, managing stress is important.
I think you brought up a couple of really important points there. Number one, I'm going to do the second first. When it comes to dealing with stress, I come from the personal perspective and the observational perspective that life with HCM, and I don't know the whys yet, we'll figure this one out later, our hearts really don't like extra adrenaline. You give it a little extra adrenaline and she just gets all kinds of agitated. So when your heart gets agitated because you're stressed, because it has adrenaline dumped in it, you tend to get more stress and that dumps more adrenaline, and that just keeps the cat chasing its tail. This was a self-taught lesson in my early 20s because I was diagnosed at 12. I really had to stop and breathe my way out of those moments because there was no stopping them. So know your triggers for anxiety and also know your triggers out of anxiety. And sometimes that comes with simple deep breathing. Some people use very sour candies to break the cycle. It's a good technique taught to me by a therapist who might or might not be my daughter. So I got one in the house. I raised one of my own. So there are techniques that you can use to break the cycle of anxiety. And if you don't know what they are, you can Google a lot of them, and they actually work without a therapist telling you about them because they're just common knowledge. But if you need to identify what your triggers are and what some of your remedies might be, it wouldn't hurt you to talk to a mental health professional. So that's number 2 first. And then on the other side, bringing up exercise and people who have been told over their lifetime a whole bunch of stuff that we have revised over the years. And I'm going to say something that I've said before, and I'll probably say it again. We were not wrong to restrict people from physical activity 30 years ago because we didn't know much and we didn't have anything to save them if something broke. Speaking of a therapist's daughter, I'm not on the phone right now. She heard her name. So if somebody has given you information about your exercise capacity, if you have been given information 10, 15 years ago, I need you to kind of clear your mind, hit the reset button, and go have a fresh conversation with an HCM specialist in 2025. Because the rule book changed because our knowledge of disease has changed. Emergency response outside of the hospital has changed. Having a good plan has changed what that means. So I was given a bunch of information in 1981, 81. It's not true anymore. It doesn't mean they were wrong. It means we've evolved. And the restrictions that I was given aren't necessary today for most people. So please don't go by what you were told because your uncle had HCM and he was told this and then they told you, and get a clean answer, get a clean understanding, go back to the doctor today and get rid of the bad habits. I was brought up in a family that did not exercise. It was not important. We didn't do it because we were told it was dangerous. That was wrong. We didn't know it then, but it's not what we would do today. So we've changed. And I taught my daughter how to go to the gym and how to exercise with her HCM, how to do the things she loves, like equestrian. Okay, she jumps really big horses. It freaks me out. I know. It's a little scary on the mom's side, but she's been doing it since she's 8 and she's almost 30 and she's still here. And I've had some experiences with horses. I would not ride them like she does, but she's great at it, and that's her stress relief as well. So being active does not necessarily have to be curtailed if you have HCM. Don't think about what it was, think about what it is. Hello, Stephanie. So good to see you too. It's been a while. Stephanie lives across the pond and is a fellow transplant. So good to see you. All right. So any other things we want patients to know during Heart Month?
Let me think. Just gave a talk yesterday evening to a group of women trying to think about what we talked about. I guess the one thing that comes up in Heart Month is also weight management. Now this relates to HCM, but has much broader implications, obviously. But getting to your point, in the 90s, the drugs we had for weight loss ended up being very harmful. And when people remember that, they remember the fact. And so, now fast forward 30 years later, we have, more of a national epidemic of obesity. But thankfully we have better drugs. And so I think it comes up, especially for people who do have clinical heart failure. They want to know whether or not taking GLP-1 receptor agonists is something that's harmful or helpful. So as cardiologists, that we actually, whether we wanted to or not, ended up becoming center to our roles because of not only the indications, but also to make sure that the safety considerations are there. So needless to say, I say that we take care of the whole body, and managing weight is important. We don't want to, again, sacrifice your entire body to preserve your heart. And so if you're a person who is interested in weight loss meds, especially with heart failure or any other type of cardiovascular disease, make sure you talk to your cardiologist about it, because we have expanded options that we did not have in the past. That's actually something during Heart Month that comes up a lot. There's a lot of stigma and people are a little afraid to ask about it, but I've noticed when I bring it up in a room, people get excited. When I ask a patient about it, they get excited. In fact, those are the happiest patients I have. So
I have seen the miracle of, and I don't use that word lightly. I've seen so many people who have lost weight that they've been unable to lose before and gotten their health back in order. And I will out my husband on this, and we don't typically do this at the HCMA. We don't talk about people who are participating in clinical trials, but considering it's not an HCM clinical trial, I'm going to talk about this one. My husband joined a clinical trial about 18 months ago, and it was for an oral GLP-1. Mm-hmm. He's a type 2 diabetic who couldn't lose that last 25, 30 pounds, went on this trial, lost the weight. His A1C is lower than mine now, which is really pissing me off, but that's a whole other story. But these oral medications seem to have been working very well for him. I don't know what the trial is going to come out to say. He's got 3 more months on the trial and no long-term extensions. Eli Lilly, bad. Give a long-term extension. But just shouting out to my friends at Eli Lilly in case they heard that one, because it was a phenomenal experience for him. And I'm super proud of him for doing the clinical trial. I didn't even push him into this one. He did it all on his own. So I've seen the labeled indication GLP-1s work for family members and friends. I have seen it personally in my house, how it's changed his behavior and taught him how to eat better and not crave the things that are bad for him. And there have been some side effects here and there, but in comparison to the side effects of long-term diabetes, they're minor. So if you are struggling and your A1C and your sugar looks a little bit high and you're trying to stave off that next level of diabetes, I encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider about options. They're available. They make sense. Long-term, they're great for you. So thanks for bringing up weight management. It's a critical part of Heart Month. And while we're here talking about Heart Month, Dawn is here to give us some notes, and these look really impressive. She lost 152 pounds.
Wow.
And HCM recently got back to the scary awful that you gain most of it back, and then you can't wait to sort it all out. Oh my goodness, let's get that weight back off. John, let's help you get back on the track. If you lost 152 pounds, that was a lot of work. So let's make sure your heart is working for you, not against you here. Please go see a specialist. If there's anything we can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to connect you with somebody. So, wow, that's a lot. Call us. We'll take care of that. Yes, it was hard to do. I hope you take a moment to go, I did a really hard thing. It may have come back a bit, but you could do it again.
That's what I always say. If you've done it before, good news. You can do it again. I know it wasn't easy, but you had it in you. So, keep trying. Don't give up.
I couldn't agree more. Okay. Calling in. Absolutely. My team is gone. It's Friday at 5:05, so call on Monday. Thank you. All right. Melissa Burroughs and the team at Wellstar, we are super happy to have you on board at HCMA as a Center of Excellence. One last time, if you would like to make an appointment with the team at Wellstar, please give them a call. They're happy to see you. What are your wait times looking like for new patients right now, Dr. Burroughs?
Yeah, that's a good question. We usually, there's the official and the unofficial. I think it's actually probably only like a few weeks. I'm just trying to think about new patients versus return patients. We've got two locations. So if I can't get you in Marietta, a lot of times I can fit you into the Paulding location. So with flexibility, usually it's like a couple weeks.
My experience with your team has been 3 to 4 weeks on average. So I know we've gotten some in 2 weeks, and I know that some have been a little bit longer because, life and schedules and, those vacation things. So we want Dr. Burroughs to get some rest too, because, the thing that we don't talk about much here at the HCMA when we're launching a program, we're not just looking to provide a good therapeutic, clinically valid program for patients. We also want the institution to support our colleagues that are working, serving you, and provide them with a good workplace and the rest that they need to do the job that they need to do, because we know that this is very hard work. So take your vacation time, rest, balance, breathe, meditate, and then get back to work, because that's what we do. And we appreciate you for it. So Dr. Burroughs and the team at Wellstar, welcome aboard to the HCMA Recognized Centers of Excellence program. We hope to see you all join us next Wednesday on HCM Awareness Day, where we've just had to make some massive pivots to the agenda for the evening. And I'm happy to tell you that we have so much content. We have made a programming change that you're going to start to see all of the content and all of the ads, all of the commercials from all of our centers start running at 9 a.m. on HCM Awareness Day on your social media platforms. So they're going to be going out all day long, and then the program will begin at 5:30 with a walk through the office and a meeting of everybody. If you can't be here in person, you'll get to see the office anyway. And if you want to join us, you can go online at 4hcm.org and sign up to come in person. We've got maybe 40 some odd people coming out to visit us, and we got some good food and some good desserts, fun stuff, and some games and some other things to work on while you're here. It's an opportunity to celebrate our successes and to look at what we need to build for the future to ensure that no family is broken by HCM, and that we're going to keep families whole as long as possible here at the Home for the Big-Hearted. So Dr. Burroughs, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks everybody for joining us for this launch meeting. And we thank you all and have a great weekend.
The Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association would like to thank our sponsors, Cytokinetics, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Edgewise Therapeutics.